Hey everyone, welcome once again to our channel with another collaboration of an IELTS expert teacher. Basically, today we are having Mr. Matin. He is from Azerbaijan but residing in UAE currently. So Mr. Matin will be sharing his top 5 IELTS writing tool tips with all of us today. So over to you, Mr. Matin. Hi sir, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How about you? Hope you're doing well as well.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. So would you please like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
My name is Teacher Matin. I've been teaching English for nearly 2 decades now. I'm an MA TESOL holder and an IELTS Niner multiple times. I've coached IELTS candidates from around the world. At the moment, I'm based in Emirates, but also I'm the founder of Matin IELTS Club in Iran and American Study Center in Baku, Azerbaijan. And today, I'm going to give you my best tips on the IELTS Writing Task 2, the essay. I'm sure you will love them, very useful and practical.
Perfectly fine, sir. Stage is yours.
All right, so let's get started off with my first tip. My first tip is that there is no magic tip. Something that can lift you from ground to very high scores overnight. There is no such secrets or magic tricks in IELTS. There is only hard work, the smart way. My experience tells me candidates who have a real goal and are dedicated achieve what they want. That's how the whole world works. So stop Googling IELTS secrets or magic tricks and start working hard, but the smart way, which will take us to my second tip here. So my tip number 2 is be smart. Don't make your writing complicated. In many cultures, complicated means good. It means valuable. So a lot of candidates try to incorporate complicated philosophical ideas into their writing in a hope for a high score, but it works exactly the opposite. The main purpose of any piece of writing in any test is communication. And complicated ideas simply cannot communicate well. In other words, the more complicated the writing, the lower your score. So now here's a question. How can I be not complicated? Well, that's the point. You shouldn't confuse complex with complicated. Look at the nature. Everything is perfect but simple, or I can put it this way, perfectly simple. For example, there are only 7 colors in the rainbow, or 7 notes in the best musical masterpieces of all time. The whole piece is complex, made of many simple components, but it's not complicated because it's made of simple components. There is the same story in writing an essay. There are only 7 patterns of organization in any given essay. Here are these 7 patterns of organization. Number 1, listing. Number 2, sequencing. Number 3, comparison, contrast. Number 4, cause and effect. Number 5, problem and solution. Number 6, extended definition. And number 7, mixed patterns, where you need to use some of the patterns together. So you should master these patterns if you're looking for a high score. And the good news is that the writing questions simply ask for one or some of these patterns of organization, which will take us to my third tip. So tip number 3, do what the question asks you to do. This is about the first assessment criterion, task response, sometimes called task achievement, which means, are you answering the question that is asked? And are you doing what the question is asking for? Let me give you an example. So here's a question. The question reads like this. The government should allocate more funding to teaching sciences rather than other subjects in order for a country to develop. Here's the question. To what extent do you agree or disagree? But there's also a line here which says, give reasons for your answers and include any relevant examples from your knowledge and experience and write at least 250 words. I'm going to read the question again. The government should allocate more funding to teaching sciences rather than other subjects in order for a country to develop. You agree or disagree? So the question asks for reasons, which means I need to use pattern of organization of cause and effect. If you remember my last tip, the patterns. If you don't use the pattern of cause and effect, no good score. Another pattern I can simply use is sequencing, because the question is asking for examples, and I can talk about my personal experience. It's like a story, a few lines in my paragraph, which goes within the pattern of sequencing or narrating. Then the question is comparing teaching sciences to teaching other subjects. This means the question wants me to use pattern of comparison and contrast. And the good news is that these patterns come with fixed grammar. So it can satisfy the fourth assessment criterion too, which is grammatical range and accuracy. And one more point here, by looking at the question, I obviously see the question asks if I agree or disagree with a statement. So it's safe to say I should express my agreement or disagreement very clearly and directly. This one will take us to my fourth tip. Tip number 4, let the examiner know what your position in the writing is. Again, in many cultures, a vague response is safe. A direct, clear one could be risky. For example, it could attract criticism. So many people try to escape from situations where they have to take position. And that's why a lot of candidates have learned culturally not to give a clear response. They don't take position. They try to play it safe, which of course lowers their score. Let me tell you why this happens and how we can solve this. Here it is. Look. This is the typology of cultural writing patterns of ESL students. This is carried out by Robert Kaplan, one of the best linguists in the history. And he identified 5 models for organizing a paper. If you see, the English is straight. Then we have Semitic, Oriental, Romance, and Russian. If I define them for you, you can put yourself in one of these models. But only the English model can help you. I'll tell you why. Look, the English argumentative writing is linear, direct, to the point, with the thesis statement or the claim right at the beginning of the argument. And supporting arguments are arranged after that. But the Semitic argumentative writing, which is about Jewish people, Arabic, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, Persians, Pakistanis, people living in this part of the world. That kind of argument presents the argument in parallel prepositions, which are embedded in stories, not in order of rank. Then, number 3 is Oriental, Asians. Their argumentative writing approaches the argument in a circular, respectful, indirect, non-assertive, but authoritative way. We are not looking for that. It means part of bad scores in IELTS is because of the culture we have. We've learned to think like that and write like that. So, number 4, Romance. It has its own problems. Number 5, Russian. You can see the problems there. But I want to tell you something. Look, Kaplan's model of contrastive rhetoric is a generic typology of cultural writing patterns, not an endorsement of one cultural style over or against another. They're all good based on what culture you are from, and listen to that, in what culture you are writing an essay. If you're writing an essay in Pakistani culture, that's fine to have a Semitic argument, or in Persian or in Azerbaijani. But if this is English, the English rater, the English examiner is going to have a problem with that. So since communicative quality, I'm saying it again, because communicative quality plays a significant role in marking a piece of IELTS writing, the English model seems to serve us best, because this way there is no room for the examiner to think about a sentence or the argument in our paragraph differently. So anytime you feel you're not expressing your thoughts directly, clearly, to the point, notice you're moving away from a high score. But part of this clear thinking may depend on vocabulary, which will take us to my final tip. Tip number 5, it might be surprising. You don't need big, high-level words to get a high score. You know, I can put this under tip number 1, avoiding complicated language. You know, instead of memorizing long lists of academic words, for example, try to build your vocabulary based on collocations and topic vocabulary. But I don't want to say the academic word list doesn't work. It does, but it's not all about the academic word list. Learn about common IELTS writing topics. This is a test, and you have to prepare yourself for the test. So learn about common IELTS writing topics. Topics like education, medicine, crime, travel, and so on. Build topic vocabulary and collocations around them. Try to make context for them by writing paragraphs. Yes, you should write paragraphs that include those topic vocabularies. And once you see those topics in the test, then you know what you need to do. For example, in this question that we had before, again, I'm going to read this. The government should allocate more funding to teaching sciences rather than other subjects in order for a country to develop. The topic is education, but there are other issues as well, such as funding, government, developing. So the question is asking you to use topic vocabulary and collocations for those topics in the question. You can come up with the words and phrases that fit the context as you're planning your essay in advance. Then, that's going to be great. Listen, then you have the words that make up your ideas, you have the patterns of organization and related grammar, as I told you before, and you know what the question wants you to do. So that's all for today. I hope you liked it. I didn't want to go for tips about this grammar and that grammar. You know, the tips I gave you today was based on my experience of marking and assessing papers. You know, most students have good grammar, good vocabulary, but they're not answering the question in the right way. So that's why I picked up those important tips. And if you use all these tips together, they can help you lift your writing score. And guys, you can contact me or my kind host, Mr. Javed, if you have any further questions about my tips. That's all for today, and I wish you luck.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. For first of all, before I begin talking about your tips, I would like to say a huge thanks to you for joining our
You're welcome.
Team and accepting our invitation. Yep. And secondly, these tips are amazing if students are going to adopt them. Lastly, I would like to request all of them, because I'll be sharing Mr. Matin's tips and his contact details in the description as well. So they can contact you by following the description links, hopefully. Lastly, to one over talk, once again, I'm very thankful to you, and I would definitely invite you once again for another IELTS session with us. And I hope that you'll be very grateful to join us. Thank you, Mr. Matin.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day ahead. See you again.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.